In Islamic tradition, few substances carry the subtle yet profound symbolism that salt does. Simple, common, and essential to life, salt has long been associated with sincerity, protection, and lasting bonds. Across the Muslim world, offering salt at the start or end of a meal isn't just culinary, it's a spiritual gesture. It is said in various narrations and cultural practices that once a person eats your salt, a bond of trust and loyalty is formed. Some scholars and elders say, "He who eats your salt cannot betray you," echoing a deep-rooted ethic of honor and hospitality. This symbolism reminds us that even the smallest acts, like seasoning food, can be infused with meaning, humility, and divine purpose. Have you ever shared a meal seasoned with salt and felt an unspoken bond? Discover how this simple act embodies profound meanings in Islam. Share your experiences or thoughts on the symbolic meanings of everyday items in fostering relationships. Historical context: salt in early Islamic traditions. In early Islamic society, hospitality was not only a social virtue, but a sacred duty. Among the many customs that defined this moral framework, the offering of salt held a unique symbolic and practical role. Salt, abundant yet essential, was offered to guests at the beginning or end of meals as a subtle but powerful gesture of trust and respect. It was believed that if someone tasted your salt, they entered into a covenant of goodwill and protection. This was deeply rooted in pre-Islamic Arab culture and beautifully preserved in Islamic ethics. Imam Ali, peace be upon him, the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad, was known to begin and end his meals with a pinch of salt. It was said to not only prevent disease, but also to remind one of humility and gratitude, recognizing that even the simplest provisions are blessings from Allah. Stories abound in Hadith literature and Islamic folklore where betrayal becomes unthinkable after salt has been shared. One narration tells of a man who refrained from harming another after realizing he had eaten his host's salt, an act that, in his heart, made violence dishonorable. Even outside Arab lands, such as in Ottoman and Persian courts, offering salt to guests became ritualized. A small bowl of salt would accompany the bread or dates as a sign that the guest was now under divine and personal protection. To break this bond would be to dishonor not only oneself, but to act against divine etiquette. These practices echo Islam's broader message, that acts of kindness, even as small as offering salt, are tied to greater spiritual truths. Explore how early Muslims used salt not just for flavor, but as a gesture of peace and goodwill. Can you recall traditions in your culture where food items symbolize deeper meanings? Share them with us. Qur'anic insights: hospitality as a divine virtue. Hospitality in Islam is not merely a social norm, it is a divine virtue, a trait of the righteous. The Quran honors the act of welcoming guests as an embodiment of faith, best illustrated in the story of Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him. In Surah Ad-Dariyat 51:24-27, Allah recounts when angels visited Ibrahim in human form. Has the story reached you of the honored guests of Ibrahim? When they entered upon him and said, "Peace," he answered, "Peace," and hastened to bring them a roasted calf. This passage highlights Ibrahim's immediate and generous response to his guests, without questioning their identity or purpose. He rushed to serve them, silently, sincerely, and abundantly. It is a timeless example of hospitality rooted in humility and care. The Prophet Muhammad also emphasized this virtue, saying, "Whoever believes in Allah and the Last Day, let him honor his guest." Bukhari and Muslim. This hadith links hospitality directly to faith, making it an act of worship. The simplicity of a meal, even salt and water, offered with sincerity, holds spiritual weight. In a world where individualism often overrides compassion, these verses and traditions remind us: to honor a guest is to honor the Creator. True hospitality transcends food. It's about presence, dignity, and warmth. Delve into the Qur'anic teachings that elevate hospitality to a divine act, reflecting one's faith and righteousness. What lessons have you drawn from religious texts about treating guests and strangers? We'd love to hear your insights. Contemporary practices, salt and hospitality today. In today's Islamic world, the sacred tradition of hospitality, so often symbolized by the offering of salt, continues to flourish across communities, both rich and poor, urban and rural. Though the customs have evolved, the core values of generosity, protection, and unity remain unchanged. In Mecca during Hajj, the atmosphere is one of unparalleled hospitality. Local residents, many of whom wait all year for this sacred season, prepare thousands of meals to distribute to pilgrims, total strangers, yet honored as guests of God. Simple packets containing dates, bread, water, and salt are given freely. For many volunteers, including children and the elderly, offering salt and sustenance is a form of ibadah, worship. It is not unusual to hear someone say, "Even 1 grain of salt shared with sincerity is written in the Book of Deeds." In Egypt, during Ramadan, the Mawa'id al-Rahman, or tables of the merciful, line the streets at sunset. These public iftar tables are often set with lentil soup, bread, pickled vegetables, and a small bowl of salt. The salt isn't merely for seasoning. It is a reminder of humility and communal gratitude. People from all walks of life, taxi drivers, refugees, office workers, sit shoulder to shoulder, breaking bread and tasting salt, creating instant bonds through shared nourishment. In Indonesia and parts of West Africa, traditional Islamic households still begin meals with salt as a mark of hospitality. A guest may be offered a pinch of salt as a first bite, an ancient gesture of peace and safety. In some cases, this act signals that the host accepts moral responsibility for the guest's well-being for as long as they are under the same roof. During crises, such as the war in Gaza or the Syrian refugee emergency, stories continue to emerge of families with barely enough food themselves, still inviting others to join their table. One Syrian mother, in a refugee camp in Jordan, was documented offering bread and a small dish of salt to a newly arrived family. When asked why, she said simply, "If they eat our salt, they are our family now." These living traditions reflect the soul of Islamic hospitality. It's not about how much you offer, but how sincerely you offer it. Witness how ancient traditions of hospitality continue to thrive in today's Islamic world, bringing communities together. Have you participated in or witnessed acts of communal hospitality? Share your stories with us. Global perspectives, hospitality across cultures. While the connection between salt and hospitality holds deep meaning in Islamic culture, it is far from unique to it. Across the world, salt has long been a symbol of peace, protection, and the sacred bond between host and guest. In Eastern Orthodox Christian traditions of the Balkans and Russia, salt and bread are presented together as a welcome offering, signifying a willingness to share one's sustenance and extend goodwill. In Hindu rituals, salt is offered to deities as a sign of purity and used in guest offerings as a token of honor and sincerity. The expression "to eat someone's salt" exists in Persian, Greek, and Turkish idioms, all pointing to a shared understanding. Once a person eats your salt, betrayal becomes unthinkable. In Japan, salt is even sprinkled at doorways of homes and shops to purify the space and bless those who enter, a quiet echo of its spiritual symbolism. From Ethiopian Buna, coffee ceremonies, where guests are served salt with coffee and popcorn, to Bedouin desert tents, where the first offering may be salted yogurt or labneh. Cultures around the world have wrapped hospitality in rituals involving salt. Despite linguistic and theological differences, this single mineral continues to unify the human experience. Whether it's on a wooden table in a Balkan village or a woven mat in a Moroccan courtyard, salt remains a humble yet sacred thread linking host to guest and culture to culture. Discover the universal language of hospitality and how a simple gesture like offering salt bridges diverse cultures. What hospitality traditions are unique to your culture? Let's celebrate the diversity together. Personal reflections. Embracing the spirit of hospitality. Hospitality is more than tradition. It's a way of being. In a world often marked by division and haste, simple gestures like offering a seat, sharing a warm drink, or seasoning a meal with care can carry profound spiritual weight. Islam teaches us that these acts, no matter how small, are reflections of our inner character. The beauty of hospitality lies in its accessibility. You don't need wealth to be generous, you need sincerity. A pinch of salt, a loaf of bread, a smile, these are the building blocks of community. They tell others, you're safe here, you're valued. Whether you're welcoming a neighbor, a stranger, or even someone with whom you disagree, hospitality breaks barriers. It humanizes and it heals. Let us each become hosts of peace in our own spaces, carrying forward the traditions of our faith, not just on holidays, but in the quiet, everyday moments of our lives. Embrace the timeless values of generosity and kindness. Let every shared meal be a step towards unity and understanding. How do you practice hospitality in your daily life? Share your experiences and inspire others.